So a lot of people may think that dual agency is the best way to go because according to them it is a faster transaction, but that's not the case. Today I'm here to debunk the truth of dual agency. So to get started, what is dual agency? Dual agency is when there is one there's one agent representing both the buyer and the seller. So let's backtrack a little bit. In the normal dual agency transaction, there's two agents, one representing the buyer and the other one representing the seller. They are called the listing agent, which is representing the seller, and the buyer's agent, or however you want to call it, representing the buyer, obviously. But in a dual agency, like I said, there's only one. And not to like talk bad about dual agency, but most agents prefer not to like do it because it's just like a messy process. So let's get started with how dual agency like really isn't the way to go.
Okay, so let me give you guys a better example of what dual agency is. So, as you guys can see, agency is when you have one single agent representing both the seller and the buyer, like I said earlier. And in a regular real estate transaction, in your typical transaction, you have two agents, one dealing with the seller and the one dealing with the buyer.
So let's talk about how dual agency in the first place starts. So let's say that a listing agent who is a seller's agent is hosting an open house for the seller, and a buyer decides to walk in to open house and he likes the house obviously, and he decides to work with the listing agent. That is what creates a dual agency. So now the agent is representing both the buyer and the seller, not just the seller, the buyer and the seller, and buyer and yeah, the buyer and the seller. And that's when the problems arise, from transaction all the way to escrow. So in this type of transaction, dual agency, the seller just wants the interest of the buyer just wants the interest of the seller. That is because, like I said earlier, he has already made that connection, and and for the buyer, his, the agent's loyalty is not 100% committed to the buyer because he just wants that commission. And here's the dark truth, guys. In a dual agency, the agent makes double commission because of both the buyer and seller. So so let's backtrack. So why do you think agents get into dual agency? Because of the double commission, right? Yeah, that's what that's what motivates them to keep on going. Okay, so now that I have said some things, issues that happen within dual agency, now it is up to you guys as maybe clientele, as clients to determine if you guys really want to get into a dual agency and like just having to deal with being like extra aware and cautious that the agent isn't messing with you guys or just not representing you guys fully or not representing you guys fully when you guys like mostly need it, especially because buying a house not is not the biggest purchase you're gonna make, but it is also the biggest one of the biggest purchases you guys are gonna make in your lifetime. So I'll leave it up to you guys, and you guys decide.